Welcome, everybody. I'm Kristen Crockett, and we are talking about how to feel ready for high level leadership. All right, so today, let's jump into number one, and that is confidence. It is confidence because there's two parts to being ready for leadership, right? There's ready, you have the skills, and then there's ready because you have the mindset, that you have the self-care, that you really feel confident that you are ready for that next level. Okay, so confidence, trusting your intuition. Are you a person that overthinks, and when you make a decision, you might switch it, you might change it around, you might talk to your team and say, oh no, did I do the right thing, what's going on? And you're actually burdening your team with the amount of worry that you have around this decision, right? So when you're in high level leadership, you really are charged with making a decision that is right for the organization, that's right for your team, that's right for your department or departments, and moving forward. So understanding your strengths, your gifts, and trusting in your ability to make decisions. And a lot of that has to deal with your intuition and how you make decisions. So, are you a person who needs some time to get clear on whether or not this decision is right for you to make? Are you a person that it's just your gut? Your gut knows. Or do you get these downloads where you're like, yes, I don't know how I know, but I know? Are you a person who really needs to logically gather all of the facts together and look at what's the best case scenario? So however you make a decision, it's important for you to be able to make the decision and then move on from it, right? So that is super important, and that comes down to trusting your intuition. And in order to do that, you have to trust yourself and know yourself, okay? And a huge part of knowing yourself is understanding your strengths, understanding what you do really, really well. Because when you are at the table with other people, you need to know how you are different. You need to know distinctively, like how you actually manage your work. How do you really come up with ideas? How do you manage your team? What are your strengths inside the organization? What are your strengths? Okay? What do you really do? What do you bring to the table that's different from any other leader? What is that for you? And so knowing your top 5 strengths, knowing all of your strengths, that is going to be super important for you to get to the next level of leadership, because you're going to be able to build your confidence by knowing what you do well. The other thing is, are you sharing your wins? Because a lot of executive leader meetings are about sharing what you have accomplished, what your team has done, what you're planning in the future. And you really have to get comfortable with sharing your wins, because it also allows people to understand the impact that you are having on the organization. How are you moving the organization forward through your mission? Right, through the mission of the organization, and how are you helping? How is your department in helping in actually moving that mission forward? How are you taking the vision of the CEO and utilizing your team to make sure that that occurs? So, really understanding your impact and sharing your wins to help other people understand what your impact really is. The next one is managing your energy and emotions, right? So this deals with self-awareness. So do you understand the times when you feel the most tired? The times when you feel the most energized? Do you understand your triggers of what triggers you to, having difficulty with impulse control? So I want you to really take some time to learn yourself, to be aware of who you are, and to understand how to develop your emotional intelligence around all of those different areas, right? So there is also leading with empathy as a part of that, understanding communication, how to communicate with people, because You can't just have one size fits all leadership with each individual and with each leader. It really needs to be clear communication that works best for each person, because we can send an email, but that's not communication. Did that person actually receive it? Did they read it? Did they understand it? How did they interpret it? Did they interpret it in the way that you needed them to understand it and move forward? So communication is really important for you, and there's so many different levels of it, and you have to know how to communicate not only with your team, with your manager, with other departments. So you really have to get really clear on how to communicate well and effectively to move your mission forward. Okay, so now we're getting into, do you have a self-care routine? This is a part of feeling ready for high-level leadership, because every leader needs to have a self-care routine, not just one thing that they do once a month, once a year. I go on vacation once a year. That's not enough, right? You need to have a routine that is something that every single day, every single week, that you are adhering to, so that you can release the emotions, that you can really disconnect and recharge, so that you can move into each new day in a different way. So what is that for you? Because what works for somebody else is not necessarily going to work for you. So really getting a self-care routine that also involves boundaries. You can't be a high-level leader and be doing all of the things all of the time. You really have to get clear on your boundaries. What are you creating sacred time, right? What is your sacred time? How are you creating boundaries around your sacred time? And that might mean the things that are important to you, like your kids or your family, or your, a hobby that you have on the weekends or in the evenings. Get really clear on your boundaries around the things that are also going to recharge you, because you cannot just be about work 24/7, because we know that that leads to burnout. We definitely know that that leads to burnout when you're not recharging and your body is, on high adrenaline 24/7. Okay. It's also setting the tone for your team that they are supposed to work all the time. And as a leader, you have to set the example for your team. Whatever you do, they will do. It doesn't matter what you say. People listen to what you do. And so setting the tone for having a self-care routine, so that people, like, for example, I had a manager who would send everybody home. If you were sick, she was sending you home. She was like, take care of yourself, do not work. You need to recover and take care of yourself, right? So that's a part of boundaries in there too, because when you are sick and you're still trying to work, you actually just extend the time for your healing. So whereas it might have taken you 2-3 days, it's going to take you 2-3 weeks, or develop into something serious like bronchitis or pneumonia, where you're going to have to sit down. And that's what happens with a lot of hard workers, is that we are hit by some kind of illness to make us actually relax and to sit down, because we have not created self-care routines the entire time. Okay, so creating a self-care routine is essential to leadership and high-level leadership. All right, so how do you release your energy? How do you release your energy? Because it cannot be on your team. How do you release your energy? So is it a workout regimen? Is it painting? What is it? How do you release the stress from the day and start over? Is it a drive? Is it watching your favorite TV show? So how are you going to release that energy, disconnect, so that you can move on and start a new day? Okay. Or even sometimes when you've had a meeting that didn't go the way that you thought it was going to go, how do you release that and then reset to then go into another meeting? So having those routines are super, super important in high level leadership. The next thing is change, implementing change. And this is all about strategic thinking. So when you understand the different stages of change, when you understand how to implement change effectively. That is super essential for feeling ready for high level leadership, because one of the first things that you're going to have to do as a high level leader is implement something that is dealing with change, whether it's something that you want to do to, to change the department or the organization, or if it is something that you are being asked to do by the CEO, by a senior level leader, then you are going to have to really truly understand how change works. How does it impact the emotions of your employees? What are the things that you need them to know? So, clear communication, having them understand how to take a part in this change as well. You really need to understand change management on a level that is definitely high up here when you are a high level leader. That will make you feel prepared to deal with the changes that you're going to have to implement when you are in high level leadership. Okay. All right. So the other thing is emotional intelligence. The other part of it is knowing how you impact other people. So understanding that you have to have this awareness of who you are, but you also have to have the awareness of how you impact others. What about other people? What about your team? How do they want feedback? What makes them tick? What do they love? What fills them up? All of these things are super important for you to understand about your team, so that you know about the impact that you are having on them. Um, how do they want to celebrate incredible moments? Do you know that? Do you know how they want to receive feedback instead of how you want to receive it? Do you know how they prefer to be communicated with? These are the types of things that are super important for you to understand. And also knowing, like, when is the worst time for them to get feedback? When is the worst time for them to have a conversation? Is it 8 o'clock in the morning? Is it 5 o'clock in the evening? What are some other triggers that are not going to be a good time for them to have a conversation? You can ask all of those questions. Get to know your team. Okay. Get to know the strengths that they bring. That is the next one, is not only understanding your strengths, but knowing the strengths of your team so that you can build an efficient team, that you know what, roles that you need to hire for. What are the areas that are missing on your team? What are the skills that are missing? But you also really need to know your people. That makes the most effective leader. It is not just saying, here's what we have to do, and then you're responsible for doing it. We're paying you for it. That's not an effective leader. It is truly working with your team to accomplish something. You're setting the strategy. You are setting the lead. You are setting the vision, and then you are having your team work in conjunction with your skills in order to move that team or that initiative forward. Okay. So the next one is knowing what is important to two people, knowing what's important to your manager, right? Knowing what's important to their manager, if you have one, if there's another one, right? Their manager may be the CEO, but you need to know what's important to your manager. Okay. Because when your manager becomes the CEO, it's important for you to know all of those things. For right now, it's how do you keep that arrow moving forward? So knowing what's important to your manager and knowing what is important to their manager or stakeholder. That could be the board. What is the board? What does the board care about? What's important to them? Because the makeup of a board is completely different every single year, right? So, or maybe every 2 years. So it's important to know how that board shifts and changes, and what's important to them. So your stakeholders as well, okay? And then knowing what's important to your team so that you can work together as well. So not just, you don't want to be that type of leader who only cares about making their manager happy, but it's also about knowing what's important to your team as well. And how do you merge those two things together? If your CEO really cares about numbers and statistics and facts, and your team really cares about relationships, how do you merge them together? How do you give data that is based on, how your relationships have moved your department or your initiatives or your programs forward? Okay. And now it is also understanding your capacity and your energy together. You have to know what your capacity is, not only of your team, but also your personal capacity. This is going to be one of the things that allows you to be ready for high level leadership, because you are supposed to set the tone for your team. You are supposed to prioritize their work for them to know what is important to work on now versus 6 months from now or a year from now. So not just giving them, hey, I need all of this done by tomorrow, but really setting the tone, really understanding what is quarter one, what's quarter two, what's quarter three, what's fourth quarter. What are the things that we are working on now? And how does that really mesh with the strategic plan of the organization? So not just willy-nilly leadership, but also learning how to have high-level strategic thinking. That is also going to make you feel ready for high-level leadership, okay? All right, so thank you all for joining me. This was all about how to feel ready for high level leadership. If you have any other questions, please feel free to DM me. If you want to know about the new program that I am launching called Expand and Lead, definitely make sure that you leave a message for me. I will leave the link in this video as well so that you can know where to apply, how to apply, and so much more information about it. It is for leaders of color who are looking to grow into the executive leadership position, that they are ready to position themselves for that. And so if you are an organization who is looking to really level up one of your employees or a few of your employees, definitely get in touch with me, because this is the perfect program for that. It is 12 weeks, and we are going over so much to build their confidence, their strategic mindset, the executive mindset, emotional intelligence, and really understanding how to engage their network as well. All right, so everybody, please have an incredible rest of your day. I'm Kristen Crockett, executive leadership coach and intuitive leadership coach, and I will see you next time.